Good morning, everyone. Welcome to a new week of shows here at the Call Sheet Daily Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Smith, here at the Fans First Sports Network. Can't wait to get into today's conversation. It is Monday morning game balls. Can't wait to talk to you about our new format here at the Call Sheet. Gonna go to a Monday, Wednesday, Friday format beginning this week where we do Monday morning game balls. We do Whiteboard Wednesday. My regular guest now for the regular season in the NFL will be Coach Frank Lasasso. Frank will join me each week to help us break down some of the more interesting schemes you're seeing throughout football, both college and pro. And then Friday is our hot route conversation with Pez's picks, and we get into the betting side and look at the odds of games each week. So really exciting. But the thing I'm most excited about, Tuesdays and Thursdays now will be film rooms, where up on our Pro Football Insiders YouTube page, I'll have video breakdowns on my Twitter at KTSmithFFSN. So lots of exciting stuff happening. There was lots of exciting stuff happening on the field on Sunday in the NFL. And as I said, it is Monday morning game balls. Time to hand out game balls to some of the top performers around the league. And let's start in Philadelphia with Jalen Hurts, a quarterback who continues to receive a lot of criticism, a lot of skeptics who do not believe that Jalen Hurts is an elite quarterback. And I understand conceptually where that argument comes from, because Jalen Hurts doesn't look like a lot of the other quarterbacks in the NFL. I mean, he's built as much like a running back as he is like a quarterback. He doesn't have a picturesque release. He doesn't throw or make some of the throws that some of the other quarterbacks around the league make. He gets criticized because he has a lot of rushing touchdowns, but they come, the majority of them, off of the tush push, which a lot of people think isn't even a football play. He can go through long stretches of games with these pedestrian numbers. Into the third quarter of yesterday's game, Philadelphia and the Rams, he was 5 out of 9 passing for 20 some yards into the third quarter. And you go like, that's not, that's barely starter level stuff, much less elite stuff. But Jalen Hurts ended up doing what he seems to always do, and that was leading the Philadelphia Eagles to a victory. Counting last year's playoffs, Philadelphia has now won 19 out of their last 20 football games. And he did it yesterday by doing the thing that so many of his critics say he can't do. He put the Eagles on his back. Again, midway through the third quarter, he was 5 out of 9 for 19 yards passing. And the Eagles were in a 26-7 hole. They couldn't get Saquon Barkley in the run game going. Nothing was happening in the passing game. It just looked like the Rams were on their way to, I don't want to say an easy victory, but up 19 in the third quarter with everything going their way. Felt like a pretty good bet LA was going to put that one away. And then Jalen Hurts put the Eagles on his back. And over the final quarter and a half, played remarkable football. 16 out of 23, 207 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions, 3 scoring drives in 4 possessions, including a 17-play, 90-yard drive that culminated in a touchdown pass to Devonta Smith on 4th and goal with about a minute remaining to give Philadelphia the points it needed to defeat the Rams. He made the throws that people say he can't make. He did the thing that people say he can't do. He carried the Eagles on a day when their offense through 2.5 quarters was dead in the water. And I guess for me, the thing is like, what else do you need to see from Jalen Hurts to convince yourself he's an elite quarterback? Playing the quarterback position is more than statistics. It is about leadership. It is about being at your best in the biggest moments. This guy has been the MVP of the Super Bowl. He has outplayed Patrick Mahomes in 2 Super Bowls. And he continues to do the things that great quarterbacks do, even if the numbers sometimes, or even if the film sometimes doesn't suggest that he plays a style of football that people would consider elite. So Jalen Hurts, big game ball to him. Big game ball number 2, the Carolina Panthers. Shout out to my son, Jake. I wouldn't say, he's only 26. So can I call him a long-suffering Panthers fan? But he's been a Panthers fan since he was like 6 years old. When he was a little kid and he was first getting interested in football, you could, I don't know if you call this good parenting, bad parenting, judge it as you may. I allowed him to pick his team. And he chose the Carolina Panthers because he liked the panther on their helmet. And that was a wise choice when he was a little kid, because they had just come off of making the Super Bowl, where they lost on a last-second kick to the New England Patriots. And as he grew up, they had some good moments. They had the Luke Kuechly era and the Cam Newton era. They went back to another Super Bowl. However, unfortunately, for the Panthers, the last several years have been pretty ugly. Last year, they had an historically bad defense. They gave up more points than any team in NFL history. No team in one season gave up more points than the 2024 Carolina Panthers. They're off to an 0-2 start, and yet yesterday, they authored a convincing 30-0 win over the Atlanta Falcons. And it was their defense, that woeful defense, that stole the show. 11 quarterback pressures. They made Michael Penix look bad. Michael Penix, 18 out of 36. 2 big interceptions, a pick 6 on a horrendous decision. Penix rushed the ball out of his hand to try to throw a perimeter screen. Cornerback reads it, picks it, basically walks into the end zone. On the other side of the ball, Atlanta tried to blitz the daylights out of Bryce Young. They blitzed him on 63% of their snaps, and Bryce Young was able to get the ball out quickly. He had a 2.46 second release time, according to Next Gen Stats, against the blitz. He went 9 out of 14 for 72 yards and took just 1 sack against the blitz. Carolina was able to be functional on offense against some pressure from Atlanta, and they engineered a stifling defensive performance, really making Michael Penix look bad in a convincing 30-0 win. A game I somehow predicted on my the NFL Buffet show I do that's out on Wednesdays with Jeff Hartman and Rob Guerrera. And we all pick an upset of the week. And I think I just picked it out of a hat. I don't know. Sometimes you just get a vibe, right? And I just thought, you know what? I'm not convinced on it. I don't know what Atlanta's identity on offense is. I don't know what are they trying to be? Are they Bijan Robinson centric? Are they trying to turn it over to Michael Penix? What's going on with Kyle Pitts? I just haven't bought into the Atlanta offense. And it just felt like Carolina would get that one right yesterday. Game ball number 3. Another team that got it right, the Cleveland Browns, and in particular, their defense. Game ball number 3 to the Browns defense, which was absolutely stellar in their 13-10 upset of Green Bay. That's the win of the year in the NFL. Cleveland beating a red-hot Green Bay team that many people were already anointing as the team to beat in the NFC, if not the NFL, after their 2 convincing wins over good opponents in the first 2 weeks of the season. But they go to Cleveland, and the Browns author the upset of the year, 5 sacks. They pressured Jordan Love all day long, 183 passing yards. He looked bad. Green Bay averaged just 3.8 yards per play. Big interception by Grant Delpit in the fourth quarter. The Browns go into the fourth quarter trailing 10-0, and they cobble together some big plays on defense and just enough offense to be able to score 13 points and get a walk-off field goal from their kicker, Andre Schmidt, 55 yards. It's interesting. Cleveland's strategy in the offseason was to double down on its defense. They had the number 2 overall pick in the draft. They need a quarterback. And there were a lot of people who were saying that they would take Shedeur Sanders, number 2 overall. Well, they did end up with Shedeur Sanders at 144 overall, 142 picks after where a lot of people thought they might take him. And when they traded out of the number 2 spot and went back down to number 5, there were some people who scratched their heads. People said, why didn't you? All right, you're not going to take a quarterback at number 2. Why not Travis Hunter? He's the best wide receiver in the draft. You need playmakers on offense. Why not that? And they move down to number 5 and they take defensive tackle Mason Graham out of Michigan. Again, a lot of people scratching their heads. What's the strategy there? They need offensive help. And you trade out of the number 2 pick to take a defensive tackle? Come on. But really, when you think about it from Cleveland's perspective, what did they do? They said, we don't think that there's an offensive playmaker, particularly at the quarterback position, worthy of the number 2 pick. So let's move down a couple spots, acquire more draft capital for next year. They got a number 1 from Jacksonville in next year's draft and load up. Let's get stronger at a position of strength. That's the philosophy the Philadelphia Eagles have been using for the last several years. They're really good up front on both sides of the ball. And what have they been drafting at the top of the draft? Linemen. To make themselves even better up front on both sides of the ball. And so now Cleveland, with guys like Graham and Mason Garrett, or guys like Graham and Myles Garrett and Malik Collins on the defensive front, and some studs in their defensive backfield like Denzel Ward and Delpit and Greg Newsome. I mean, they're loaded on D. And essentially what they're saying is, we're not going to be great on offense, so let's be great on defense. And granted, they kind of got boat raced by Baltimore, but that's no sin. The Ravens are going to do that to a lot of teams. But they have held now, the Browns, 2 high-powered offenses, Cincinnati and Green Bay, to 27 combined points. That's impressive. Game ball, Cleveland Browns defense. Game ball number 4, kick blockers. Holy moly. I don't ever remember a weekend in the NFL where there were as many game-changing blocked kicks as we saw on Sunday. 4 of them, all in the fourth quarter, all in close games, all plays that changed or altered their particular games. Let's start with Jordan Davis in Philadelphia. Eagles leading 27-26. Rams lining up for a game-winning 44-yard field goal on the final play. And 330-pound Jordan Davis just runs over 2 Rams blockers, blocks the kick, and then for good measure, he didn't need to do it, but why not, scoops it up and races it back 50 yards for an icing-on-the-cake touchdown. According to Next Gen Stats, Jordan Davis reached a top speed of 18.59 miles per hour while running back that kick. The guys who do these statistics are amazing, right? Listen to this stat I'm about to drop on you. Jordan Davis's 18.59 miles per hour is the fastest speed ever recorded for a player who weighs more than 300 pounds. I mean, the fact that that's a statistic, that's a recorded statistic is amazing. And the fact that a man who weighs 330 pounds can run almost 19 miles per hour is also amazing. But he wasn't the only one. Cleveland defensive tackle Shelby Harris blocked a Green Bay kick with just over a minute to go that gave them the ball back and set up Andre Schmidt's game-winning 55-yard field goal. Jordan Davis' teammate in Philly, Jalen Carter, blocked a kick earlier in that game to keep Philadelphia on track in its comeback win. And maybe the most impressive blocked kick of the entire day, Jets defensive lineman Will McDonald, who hurdled a guard. I mean, I say defensive lineman. He's an edge rusher, built way more like an outside linebacker than he is a defensive lineman. So let's be clear on who Will McDonald is, one of the better edge rushers in the NFL, and put his athleticism on display by hurdling a Jacksonville defensive lineman, and then blocking that kick and then scooping and scoring. Tampa Bay, not Jacksonville, my apologies. Scooping and scoring in a manner that looked like it was going to swing the game in the Jets' favor. And it also led to what will inevitably become one of the greatest memes of all time, Aaron Glenn's strut walk down the sideline, which if you haven't seen it, you should Google Aaron Glenn strut. It is, if you want a legitimate LOL moment where you will like legitimately laugh out loud, Google Aaron Glenn strut. That is 100% going to become a phenomenal meme as we go. So the kick blockers, unbelievable performances by some of those guys, which was really just individual effort, just outrageously good individual effort from those individuals. And game ball number 5, we'll wrap it up with this. Minnesota Vikings defensive back Isaiah Rodgers, who in the Vikings game against Cincinnati, a 48-10 blowout, forced by himself 4 Cincinnati turnovers. He forced 4 turnovers. And that included 2 touchdowns on his part, a pick 6 and a scoop and score, both of which came in a stretch in the second quarter where Cincinnati produced turnovers on 4 out of 5, or I should say Minnesota produced turnovers on 4 out of 5 Cincinnati drives that propelled them to a 34-3 halftime lead and really put that game out of reach. Brian Flores' defense in that contest, 5 turnovers, 4 sacks, held the Bengals to just 171 total yards. That mad scientist continues to cook it up in the lab. And Isaiah Rodgers was an unbelievable performer. I'd have to look this up. I don't know when the last time a single defensive player produced 4 turnovers on their own in a game. I'm sure it's been a while. I'll have to look that stat up. That's a good one. By the way, Bengals quarterback Jake Browning, his "you never should have cut me" moment, that didn't age well. Browning used to be a practice squad quarterback with the Vikings. They cut him. And then in 2023, he engineered, as a backup to Joe Burrow, a comeback win for the Bengals, and very famously, was shouting into the cameras and at the Vikings sidelines, "You never should have cut me." Well, I'm glad he had that moment. He had that moment where he got, in his mind, vindication, but didn't last, obviously, as the Vikings absolutely rolled Cincinnati. So there are our game balls. Jalen Hurts, the Carolina Panthers, the Browns defense, the NFL's kick blockers, and Vikings defensive back Isaiah Rodgers. Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, tomorrow, Tuesday, in lieu of a call sheet podcast, I'm going to produce some video work that will be up on our Pro Football Insiders YouTube page, our channel, I should say, will be up on my X account at KTSmithFFSN. Steelers fans, going to take a look at Derek Harmon's debut. How did the rookie number 1 draft pick perform in Pittsburgh's win over New England on Sunday? Going to take a closer look at that Browns defense. How did they shut down Jordan Love and Green Bay? Going to look at Justin Herbert, who played phenomenal football. The undefeated Chargers are quietly having a really impressive start to their season, and Herbert has been one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. Going to do a little breakdown on him. And then I'm sure there's going to be something out of tonight's Baltimore-Detroit game. I think that's a compelling matchup. Stylistically, those are two teams who are always interesting to watch. So to get them on the field together will inevitably produce some interesting stuff. And I'll probably have something out on Baltimore-Detroit as well. So join me for that tomorrow on PFI YouTube and my X account at KTSmithFFSN. And I will be back here at the call sheet on Wednesday with Coach Lasasso for our whiteboard show to dive into some of the more interesting schemes we're seeing throughout football. Until then, hope everybody has a great Monday and Tuesday as well. And we'll catch you on Wednesday. Take care, everybody.